Okay, greetings. Today's video is going to be kind of a basic video for those who may be new to backing up, new to computers in general perhaps. We're not going to get into any real depth as to what backing up is or what it should be. We're not going to talk any real high-level stuff, just kind of a general overview. Um, we really can't tell you what specifically to back up, but we can kind of give you some ideas of things to think about when you're considering doing a backup job or coming up with a backup policy in your business or for your computer, and give you some things to think about and offer our help in areas that where we can. Today's video is brought to you by BlueSky Technologies. We go beyond the data backup. Um, First thing you want to understand is why you're backing up. It's definitely a good idea, and I think everybody sort of instinctively knows that having a copy of your data is important. But backing up a computer is going to prevent the loss of data as well as increase the recovery time after a hard drive failure. There are a lot of things that can go wrong with a hard drive or with a computer. Everything from human error to mechanical error to electrical problems, you name it. There are a lot of things out there that can really mess you up and mess you up in different ways. And having a backup plan, or actually a backup policy, is going to help you overcome some of those problems when you have, excuse me, when you have some kind of a failure. And like I said, there are many different failures out there that can arise: uh, theft, flood, fire, electrical problems, hard drive problems, human error problems, theft, a lot of things that can go on. And having a good backup plan, having a good backup policy in place is going to help you recover when those things happen. And believe me, those things happen. We see them every day. It's just a matter of time before they happen to you. So having a good backup plan in place is going to prevent the loss of information, or at least help it. And it's going to decrease the recovery time after a hardware failure. Uh, how you use your computer or computers is going to affect how deep you want to get into the backup waters, if you will. Um, if you just basically use your computer to watch DVDs, say you've got a laptop, you take it on vacation with you, the kids watch DVDs on the trip, maybe you use it to check email or surf the web. A computer that's used that way, you could probably argue that it doesn't need to be backed up at all. Um, Say you're a student, for example, you write papers and you complete projects. Well, yeah, you're going to definitely want to think about that. If you've got a student that's going off to college, they're going to be depending on the information on that laptop for their grades and for their careers down the road. That's definitely something that you're going to want to consider having a backup of. If you're an accountant or a lawyer or a professional business owner that has um, real important data, you're going to want to give a little bit more thought and maybe have a few different tools in your bag for what to do in a case um, of a failure of some kind. Or if you're a big corporation with databases and email servers and the whole nine yards, that's going to put you in a whole different class um, of things that you want to do to keep your systems up. So where you fall on sort of this scale is going to depend on what you need to do in order to back up. A couple of things to consider, again, depending on where you fall on that list, is things like a local backup. Say you've got a USB drive or a DVD drive that you want to back up files to or copy files to. That may be great. An online service where you can back up your data online. It's off-site. Um, Images. An image, for those that don't know, is basically a file representation of your hard drive. It lets you do what some call a bare metal backup or a bare metal restore. In the event that your hard drive fails, you can replace the hard drive, put this image back on the hard drive, and you're right back to where you were when you did the image. In other words, you've saved a lot of time getting that system set back up. And then there are things like RAID that can take it another step and can actually allow you to keep working in the event of a hard drive failure. So there are a lot of things, and RAID itself is a whole other topic. a lot of in-depth stuff there that we won't go over here. But there are different ways to cover different problems. You want to think of your backup policy, again, as being a brick in the wall. One brick may or may not do it for you, but having a brick wall with many bricks is going to help you recover from pretty much any kind of failure that you could have. Doing a local backup is going to be great if you have a local failure. If you delete a file, if you accidentally get rid of something, having that local backup is going to be great. But what if your computer's stolen? Chances are they're going to steal everything around it. What if your building burns down? One of my favorite things is that firemen don't rush in to save computers. So if you've got a local backup, that's certainly good, but it doesn't protect you um, in the event of a big disaster or theft. That's where the online backup comes in. If you have a fire or theft or something of that nature, the online data, the data that's backed up off-site over the internet, or if you physically take the data off-site, that data is going to be safe. You're not going to have to worry about it. Let's take it a step further and say you want to cover yourself in the event of a hard drive failure. Hard drives fail all the time. You can make what's called an image of your hard drive, and let's say tomorrow your hard drive fails. You can replace the hard drive, put that image back on it, and you're right back where you were yesterday when you put the hard drive, put the image, saved off the image. Um, Take it one step further, and you could have a RAID array in your computer, which would be 2 or more hard drives. Then, let's say a hard drive failed, you had that hard drive failure. A RAID is going to actually enable you to continue working even though that one hard drive has failed. It's going to use the other hard drive or other hard drives to keep your system running. So for the computer that you use just to watch DVDs, having a RAID and image and all of this is probably overkill. But for a company, for someone that depends on their computer, someone that wants to spend the extra money and be aware of how all of that works, taking advantage of these extra bricks in the wall can for sure save you some time and headache. And again, all of those are topics that could use a video all by themselves, and we just briefly covered them here. What do you need to back up? That's the million-dollar question, and basically there are two types of files that live on your computer: applications and data. An application is just a program that uses data. A little more eloquent definition on the slide there. Data is the gold. Data is the stuff that you want to keep. Data is the pictures. Data is the resume. Data is the music file that you just created. Backing up an example of an application, we'll say real quick. If you use a Microsoft Office, it's going to be the application. A Word document or an Excel sheet is going to be the data. That's going to be the gold. TurboTax is another example of an application. A tax file, your year-end tax file that you may do or your accountant does, is going to be the data. So there's a big difference between the application and the data. The application doesn't necessarily need to be backed up, and the word necessarily is important. One could argue that in some cases it is important to back up an application, but if we're talking about something like Microsoft Word or TurboTax or QuickBooks, saving the application files is not really going to help you if you have a problem with the application. It's a lot easier to just reinstall the application from media, whether it's CD, DVD, whether you download it online. Reinstalling the application is going to be the best way to get that component of it back. When you install an application, there are registry entries that are done, files are copied to multiple places, and to actually try to go in and restore that from a backup is it's really almost impossible to do. So an application, the easiest way to get stuff back is to reinstall the application. Now data, on the other hand, by all means should be backed up. A lot of cases it's impossible or at least very difficult to replace. And here's an example. If you have a resume that you've saved, if that gets lost, the worst case, you can retype the resume. The other extreme of that is if you have baby pictures, or if you have pictures of a wedding, or if you have pictures of a relative that's passed on, that data is impossible to replace. There's nothing you can do to get that data back short of, there's nothing you can do. So that kind of data should definitely be backed up, and it's data that's relatively easy to restore once you've backed it up. So that's kind of the difference between applications, stuff you really don't need to back up, and data, stuff you really need to back up. What we see happen a lot of times is people will want to back up everything on their hard drive. When they need to restore, they've got to sort through everything to get to the good stuff. It's always easier to back up just the good stuff. That way, when you go to restore, when you need that data, you don't have to wade through operating system files and DLLs and temporary cookies and things like that. Again, what do you need to back up? The only person that can answer that question is really you. What do you use? What kind of applications do you use? Where do you save your data? Is it irreplaceable? What is irreplaceable? Different things are going to be irreplaceable to different people. I may not care about music files on my computer. You may be a production company that makes music. You're going to care about that music. Um, so what you use and how you use it is going to depend on what you back up.